Grayscale has officially launched an application for the first ever Cardano spot ETF. Will it get approved? What will that do to the price of ADA? We'll talk about that. Oh, speaking of ADA, who did Charles Hoskinson mention that they are potentially going to be working with, and what does that mean for the network? We're going to take a look at some Bitcoin statistics and metrics. We have Magic and Money joining us to break down the charts. Has Bitcoin dominance topped? Is altcoin season around the corner? What was this last rally we saw last night where Bitcoin got to 98,200? Was that just a big bull trap as Bitcoin is currently trading under 96K? Speaking of traders, we have Cassius Couvet in the house. He'll be joining us live in studio to give his thoughts on the markets. We have that and much, much more on today's episode of Sin City Crypto. Let's go.
Hola! It's your boy, Big Rob, back in the house. Welcome to Sin City Crypto, home of the entertainment-focused cryptocurrency content, where we take old, boring, stale information, repackage that whole thing up in a fun and sexy way. You know what? I said yesterday that Bitcoin is going to break out.
Yeah, you were right.
And I thought it was coming.
You were so right.
But I said 48 hours.
You were so right for a split second.
I said 48 hours.
You were so right for 1 hour.
We had a little test run, and no, honestly, dude, I do think sometime by the end of the week, and I do think by tomorrow, I think we started seeing a little bit of bullish momentum.
There's no momentum.
Which got canceled.
There's
but
no velocity. There's no momentum.
You truly don't think we're gonna cross over 100K in the next day? It's coming, bro.
I don't.
Interesting.
Anyways, we have a special guest in studio. The man, we asked Cassius kindly to create a beautiful outro song, the most beautiful outro song ever. And he did it. And it's been on our show for what, like a year? And we always get compliments of it. And Cassius, welcome back to the studio.
Hey, man, happy to be here.
We're excited to have you, brother. How you doing?
Man, I'm excited, man. I was in town. I hit you guys up and said, hey, I'm coming through. You're like, just the door is open. Come on through. So
that's not true. You hit me up and said, hey, can I come in studio tomorrow? I said, bro, you don't need an invitation.
That's about right. Yeah.
We're happy for you. We're excited for you to join us. I know you've been doing a lot of TA and trading. Well, what are your thoughts on like what we've seen price action wise on BTC? And are we just in a phase where every little pump is just a big bull trap and we're just going to go right back down to the support?
That's actually possible. We've major supported about 89K. But, man, I'm always watching the momentum waves. I use Market Cipher. I'm on Market Cipher B as the oscillator. But a lot of stuff has topped out, like on the monthly wave. We got a red dot showing and stuff. So it's possible that, any rallies may not be sustained. I tell everybody right now we're living in a scalper's paradise. I'm in there scalping in and out pretty quickly because I got to wait for a major breakout one direction or the other to give you a definitive.
Like I said, there's just no momentum.
Right. Dude, I am in the exact opposite camp, bro. I'm in the exact opposite camp as you are on this. And you know what? I think you just had, some lingering thoughts or memories when it comes to what we saw in that long consolidation last year.
Lingering thoughts and memories?
Lingering thoughts and memories. Well, if you go back, what happened? What was the big story of 2024 as far as the second half was? Well, we traded between the, what was it? 60 and 70,000 from basically March all the way to November. And so, you had like 9 months, 8-9 months of just boring price action. And that is not what we're seeing right now. You know what? I want to remind you that we are in the earlier stages of a bull market. I don't want to say the beginning. We're not in the beginning of the bull market. We're in the thick of it, but we're still, I would say, in the first half. Right? We're in the first period if we were looking at hockey. And you know what? With that said, long consolidations ain't here, man. That's not where we're at in the market. You know what? We ran up pretty hot. We had the ETF come out a little earlier than anticipated. We had an all-time high prior to the Bitcoin halving, which was a first for that. And we were coming off in a really nasty bear market. So we had to regain some confidence. That happened. So now that's out the way. You know what? We're at a little pit stop. And I would encourage you not to sit on the sidelines while we watch Bitcoin rip up to 120, 130, 150,000 before you finally decide, you know what? Market's strong again. We're back. And like at that point, you're too late. And you know what? I'm putting my position in now. I identify that this $95,000 Bitcoin is a great time to enter, not for Bitcoin. Well, I mean, technically it is, but not for Bitcoin, but for the alts. The alts are on massive discount. They're down 30, 40% from where they were a couple weeks ago. And we know that when Bitcoin takes off again, it gets back over to 110, 120 plus thousand, new all-time high price discovery. As soon as we get any consolidation over a week, 2 weeks, the alts are going to absolutely rip and explode. And now's the time to put your position in. And so for those of you sitting on the sidelines, for those of you sitting next to your co-host, I would encourage you not to fall asleep and just think that we're going to consolidate and have a snooze fest, but to like get ready to make some damn money, because that's what I'm doing. I got my trade positions open. Let's go.
Interesting you picked the fifth most popular sport in America, hockey. Figured maybe basketball.
We are a hockey town, bro. Like we watched the Vegas Golden Knights lift up the Stanley Cup in the arena, and then you're gonna sit here and be like, and then have the audacity to say the fifth most boring. Vegas,
I did not say boring.
Vegas does not want you
said
here
the fifth
anymore.
Most popular sport.
He said
You know that was a slight.
He said it because of the periods. There's 3 periods in hockey. That's why he said that.
I did forget we were at the Stanley Cup Finals where the Golden
And then you're crapping on hockey, like.
Yeah, and how did we get there, Robin? You're welcome. Anyways, let's talk a little Cardano. Grayscale has officially filed the 19B4 application for a Cardano spot ETF, which is the first one in the US and ballpark 60th crypto ETF file this year so far. Any doubt that this is going to get approved?
If they deny the Solana one, then yes. But if Solana gets approved, then everything.
What if XRP gets approved?
Solana's up first, timeline-wise. So Solana will get approved first. Then if that happens, zero doubt that XRP, HBAR, Cardano, Litecoin, Dogecoin, they all get approved. I think the only time you start getting denials is with perhaps meme coins outside of Doge. I think Doge gets the golden ticket. Come on in. You're an OG coin here. Also, I mean, you can't really argue with the decentralization and the tokenomics behind Doge. Slightly inflationary, but we know that there's no massive supply held by any organization. With that said, there is a massive supply held by XRP, but we also give them a pass as well because they've gotten the green light from the SEC, right? Or per the judge via the SEC lawsuit.
So Cash, I'm curious. We saw Bitcoin ETF, rumors of approval, price starts to go up. It gets approved, price goes up, and then there's consolidation. ETH, kind of last minute thing. We get word it's getting approved. It pumps 25% in a day, and then consolidation. Do you see the same thing happening for every altcoin that gets an ETF?
Well, no, and this is why I actually called this out on Twitter yesterday. The reason why Bitcoin ETF, why we wanted to spot Bitcoin ETF so much is because Bitcoin clearly has a finite supply, right? So if you compare that to something like Dogecoin, it has an infinite supply. So why necessarily is it positive or bullish news for an ETF if you don't have a hard cap on your supply, right? I mean, there's all kinds of ETFs for all kinds of stocks, and they don't always go up when they come out. As a matter of fact, they used to call it ETF curse. Sometimes you get ETF approved and then the thing goes down. Yeah. But for Bitcoin, it makes sense because there's not an infinite supply. So like we know that BlackRock or whomever has to actually buy actual spot BTC, which then puts pressure on the price, right? Whereas if you have an infinite supply, that same logic doesn't necessarily apply. So I would think it depends on what cryptocurrency, especially if you're talking about longer term. Talking about short term, as far as sentiment it goes, like that. I'm always a little concerned with the buy the rumor, sell the news type of thing on the short term. But as far as long term, I think it really does matter the tokenomics.
Yeah, for me, I look at, you take a look at Grayscale. They had that massive Bitcoin trust, Ethereum trust. They ended up converting to the spot, and their fees historically have been around 2.5% to 3% on the trust. Well, when they swapped over to the spot, they didn't budge on the price, even though they were 6 times higher, 7 times higher than the next ETF issuer. And so you saw a lot of outflows from that ETF, and also the people that bought it when the discount to NAV was like 48, 50% in 2022. the people that bought that, and then now that price is at par with what the spot price is because it's a spot ETF and it has to be. People were up 100%, 200%, and they cashed that thing out. So I think it also depends on, is there a massive trust that has underlying assets of the ETF they're applying for? Is that going to get converted? What's that fee going to look like? And then we can potentially look at, hey, are we going to see outflows? Are we going to see people selling? So that's something I'm going to keep my eye on. And then I do want to kind of shift over this before we bring Magic on. So there is I don't know if this is going on right now, but I think it starts in about 15 minutes. This is titled A Golden Age of Digital Assets, Charting a Path Forward. This is a hearing held by the Committee on Financial Services. So this is something we can get some news from. Could we see some volatility in the markets? Someone says something potentially. And then I do want to share this video. This is from Senator Cynthia Lummis, who is grilling Fed Chair Jerome Powell. I don't know if she's grilling him, but asking him questions. And the question of debanking was brought up. Let's take a listen what she had to say.
Do you commit to disciplining or removing any staff that are found to have engaged in debanking activity, furthering Operation Choke Point 2.0, or other misconduct?
I can't make an open-ended commitment to remove anybody, but I will tell you that I am struck, and my colleagues and I are struck by the growing number of cases of what appears to be debanking, and we're determined to take a fresh look at that. In fact, I took the thing that you showed during the debanking hearing. When I saw that, we're now taking that out of the manual. So I thank you for that.
Okay. Jerome Powell, new FDIC chair, new SEC chair, new Treasury of Commerce, new Treasury Secretary, new SEC chair. Things are shifting. And then I do have an article I'll share a little later in the show about what banks on Wall Street are doing. But it's Tuesday. And so if if you're watching our show, Tuesdays is Magic Tuesday. We have Magic and Money joining us. Magic, welcome back to the show, brother. How you doing?
Freezing my buns off over here in Kansas, but
Still,
I'm doing all right.
It's beautiful 65-degree weather in here in Las Vegas. You want to come visit us, man?
I kind of do. I got to get there by tomorrow. We might have 10 inches of snow when I wake up tomorrow. So
I heard rumors that there is one part of Sin City Crypto, one host who has excess rooms in his house. So if you ever need somewhere to lodge, all jokes aside, Magic. I want to talk about Bitcoin, and I want to show. There was one thing I want to show right here. So this was posted by Bitcoin Census. And I'll pull this up so everyone can see. Bitcoin dominance deviation confirmed above previous high, which is mirroring the last cycle. If history repeats, a sharp decline in Bitcoin dominance could fuel a major altcoin rally. And this is kind of the chart that this account is referencing. I think it was last week or the week before, Magic, where you pulled up the Bitcoin dominance. Looks like 61% kind of is the top. What are your thoughts on that? And also the little pump we saw yesterday. I was doing a trading show, and I was watching Bitcoin go to 98.2. I identified that I thought it was going to get rejected at that 99.3 level, 99.5. I actually put in a limit order on a short, but it never got filled. It just came right back down to 95.7. And I kind of opened the show asking this question, like, I just feel like there's no momentum, there's no velocity, there's really not a lot of volume. The sentiment's still in the garbage. Are these big pumps just great shorting opportunities to you, or how are you looking at the markets?
It kind of all depends on what your outlook is. High time frames, the highest time frame setup was actually a short recently, and it's still going to play out for a while, in my opinion. But you had a low time frame setup, but that was a trade that's already played out as well. So we can talk about that, because that's actually what I was going to cover, was the high time frame into the low time frame setups, so that people can kind of manage zones accordingly.
Great, let's do it.
Dominance is where you were leading off to, and it is still very, very relevant. This is what they're referring to. It's essentially just the gold pocket. All you've done is, as I said, I mapped out prior cycles. You can see dominance declining. The top doesn't still come until here. Last cycle, dominance tops and is declining. You don't get your cycle high till here. So what you've seen is, this was my major target zone for Bitcoin dominance coming into this cycle. You can see we've been tinkering with the 2020 low here for a while, and now we're formally into that gold pocket. You want to watch this on a weekly or monthly chart probably, but realistically, the 2020 low around 57, 56% is kind of like that base support for dominance if you're looking for altcoin. If it gets below here, I'm expecting it to decline further into probably lower than the 2022 high at that point, down into like the 40s again. And that's when altcoins can flourish. So this is, again, time-wise when we would expect that as well, if you recall. Each time this happens, you can see that the cycle is, I wouldn't say over, but there's not as much time left as you think, you know? So it's usually about 250 to 300 days before a 1-to-1 if we were to do a traditional cycle. And if we broadcast that now, it would be out to like October, which is the 1-to-1 of the cycle. So timing-wise, it makes sense for dominance to potentially try to put in a top here. There's never any guarantees it has to be the same, but it could. In terms of the actual price action, as always, you know, there's several ways to look at the market. We were looking at this as something that we were expecting to potentially, you know, have a setup for a short. And it was essentially a shark pattern, which is, again, a harmonic pattern. You can go to Scott Carney's website and learn about them. It was a very easy setup. You essentially take the lows and then you take the highs of the pattern, and you're just shorting the swing failure patterns or potentially longing this swing failure pattern here. Your targets are very simple. You're looking for the 50% mark first, then you're looking for the 886. I always kind of throw a little pocket in there just because I like to keep, you know, you don't want to try to be too exact all the time. That's not how things work. So I give myself a little zone, but the next target is 86,291 for me. And I'm looking at that target unless Bitcoin, you know, starts living back above like about 100 grand. There are some things in that area that hit with over 70% hit rates on a regular basis, on a quarterly basis. And that would be the pivot, the average of last quarter's price action. So to me, this is, and it's an obvious target. So you have a setup in play where the targets line up perfectly. Timing wise is the question. We are into other areas of the chart, if you recall, where we were expecting, you know, some resistance just based on expansion rates of prior cycles and time. So I believe it's this one here, trend-based zones. This is one we've talked about before, but all we've done is we've modeled this area because this is how I figured out the top from 2021. This is my zone for a top and timeline, and it worked out well. Doesn't mean it's going to work out well every time, but in this instance, this was going to be resistance for us between 101,660 to 124,077. If we use the exact same style of ratios, this is what would have given us the area for a top for this cycle. And you can see that we've come into contact with it inside of this little zone about the same time we did last cycle. So for me, this is resistance. And until the weekly starts closing above 104, moving through the time frames a little more, I'm looking at this as opportunistic as I can. If you were to look at it through a different lens, just the halvings, which I think is a very important way to look at things, you can start getting time on these halvings as well and learning more about when a big correction is going to come. So I don't have that on this one, but I could show you really quickly. It's pretty easy. Well, where are we at here? July 2016, right? About right there.
Yeah.
And then you would go to the next halving, which is all the way in May, out in this region, I believe, right over here. Yeah, it was going to be May 11th or so. So if you're looking at this, you can start projecting for tops and bottoms just using simple fib ratios. As you can see, there's your top, there's your first top. So in theory, you could take this and run it back, so to speak, to the original start date and get this time for here. And so this will allow you to start projecting, you know, here's my top, here's my last major correction, right? We can do the exact same thing from where we are to where we are now because we've got a new halving pivot. So we could very easily run this to the halving, and that's in April, the week of April 15th because it was the 20th.
Yep.
And then run it back to here, and you can see, you know, there's our top, there's our bottom. Now we need to project these out though. And you can see we're getting very close to that last major correction here in March. So I'm expecting this to be putting in some form of a range and a large structure, and then potentially getting a move down into some common area zones here over the next coming weeks. I think if we get a massive pump out of this zone, it's probably for shorting into March. but I'm going to be looking at that as kind of the next area for me to start looking for buys time wise is probably in the next 30 days, 30 to 45, I should say. But yeah, that's not to overcomplicate. It's just, that's how I see things right now.
So
I'm looking for lower prices.
So Magic, you're saying you can potentially see kind of grind down till March and then really explode into Q4 of this year. That's kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. And it lines up nicely with the volatility setup we talked about on this show, where we said anytime you have 2 consecutive quarters of outlier compression, meaning that these candles on average are anywhere from 67 to if it's a positive candle, 114%. And you had 2 candles here that barely covered 30% of price action. So they were so small and price was so compressed. Usually every single time in Bitcoin's history you've done that for 6 months, you've seen a return to the average of at least 70% gains in the following quarter. However, after that quarter takes off like it did, you've seen the exact same setup. And it lines up very nicely with the time we just talked about. It would be post-expansion PA here. So I'll go to the daily. It's a little easier. Every single time we've seen that setup in terms of volatility, you mark your open, you have seen a pump. You've seen a pump of an average of 10.86% or as high as 15.86. So you've seen this thing rally and then come down to the average, I call it average dump zone. And that is putting you squarely near that $86,000 pivot. So does it have to happen because it's happened every other time that we've done this? No. But at the same time, there's a lot of things lining up right now that are pointing that if I was looking for a move like this, I'd want to be looking in this zone for my next opportunity. And time is starting to agree in terms of how you'd be looking at it, every single time. Here's another example. You pumped right out. This one only 8.91, straight down to the average. 13% dump after you opened positively. It's the same with this one. You opened at 15.86% to the upside, and then you proceeded to give it all up and actually front run by 1.37% the pivot, which is fine, but that'd be the target still. So the setup has been playing out throughout Bitcoin's history exactly the same, so for me, I'm sticking to it until I see something that convinces me that this thing's going to just absolutely blow through targets. You were talking about, looking for it to get a little bit higher, very, very similar to price action from 24 to 32K, if you recall. I'm going to get rid of this here. This is a very, very similar structure where you've taken out highs and lows, where you have a shark pattern here. And this was the 113% target, actually. So it actually played out identical. These are identical patterns and identical fib ratios. So it's it's not meant to be a fractal, but it is telling you that once you start hitting these areas, these are the areas of interest. And the note is the 50% mark. So when you come back up here and you look at it, because it is kind of a cylinder-esque, look, you can see that you want to be paying attention to this at about the EQ. So if you're looking at this through the lens of like just a very simple trend line, I've got expanding lows and expanding highs. The 50% mark is what you want to be paying attention to at 99,470. So unless you're living back above this area, there's really, you're looking for your next move down into key areas. And that zone we just talked about is the must hold post-halving zone. For anyone that's watching and worried about the cycle, post-halving, you have a very clear indication with averages that'll tell you if the cycle is going to end or not. Well, if the cycle is ending, because market structure is changing at that point. So anytime that you move through the halving, you want to start looking at your last year and your last 6 months of price averages, because they usually converge. So if you turn them on, this is your 6 month here, and then here's your yearly. Every single time you've come down to this post-halving, it's been support. Only when you lose this zone right here, historically, do you run into an issue where you're now looking at things like, is the cycle over? And I'll show you very, very plainly, that's exactly what you would want to be looking for. It makes it really easy. You can put a box on your chart and say, if we give this up, every single time we've done that in the past, post-halving, that has been the end of the cycle, like right here. Okay, so this is your halving. You are above these zones. Moving through, you've got one here, but you don't have convergence. See how they're lined up and stacked? Now you've got converging averages. They're within range of each other, and you've back tested it. If you go back to the 2020 cycle, same exact thing. 2016, you're coming out of the halving. It's support. It remains support. As soon as it's given up, that's where you know, okay, something is different. I need to start looking for lower areas of value, and we're still above it, you know. So it's one of those things where people are going to panic if we reach this level, but that's not always a bad thing, you know.
And what is the what is the price of that level, Magic?
So this box is between 80,107 and 83,574. That zone is historically, after the halving, if we give up those major averages, it's been the end of the market. And then the setup that I've come to anytime that we do that is we target the gold pocket, right? I mean, it's one of the most easy places to look to. It's very simple. Anytime you've done it in history, you know, you give up this zone here, you target the gold pocket. And if you do that, I think you have to be in log a lot of times to get these values. But, you know, that's where you've ended up finding at least your initial support. There we go. We'll get to that. And you just extend it over. And I know it's messy now, but we'll clean it up. Anytime you've given this up, you find your initial support here on the gold pocket until it's lost. And then that's usually where you find your deeper retraces, like 80% plus. But that's the setup. So if you lose this zone, one could, you know, in theory, start hypothesizing and saying, okay, well, where's the gold pocket of this cycle? If we lost 80K, where should I be looking to for at least my next area of support? And it comes in at like 51 to 48K here at the low of the last range. So until this area of the box is lost, the doomers, you know, they can doom all they want. But this is your next major opportunity to me, because every single time we've come out of the halving, we have found support on it. This one we didn't actually touch, but this one here was already in place. This is the one that was here. We were literally just bouncing on it, holding this box is where it would have been. So to me, if we come back to it, I'm looking at it as opportunity, right? And so that's still kind of my main thesis until I see major strength and price action moving to the upside. However, if lost, everybody should have a contingency plan, right? And this is it, you know, 48 to 50K would be like the next major area.
Awesome. Is there and real quick, Magic, is there a crypto chart that you are looking at potentially for a trading setup, whether it's long or short, or one that's kind of intriguing to you?
So the one I've been kind of messing with isn't Ethereum, actually, even though I'm interested in Ethereum because I hold some Ethereum. It's been Litecoin. It's been Litecoin. Litecoin historically is a very, very easy chart to watch. I'm on the monthly chart for anyone that's wondering.
What does that mean,
and
Magic?
each one of these.
What does that mean? It's a very easy chart to watch. What does that mean?
You don't have to do almost any technical analysis on it. You can draw pretty much the same line all the time. They're labeled MSFP here. So you're looking for a monthly swing failure pattern. And that is essentially determined every single high or low on this chart going back in history. You can see that you swung failure monthly here, here, and here. This is your support. This is where you're buying. You had one here, so you're expecting a reversal, which you got. Same thing up at the highs, right? Anytime you've had a monthly swing fail, it's been a major high. Well, you've had monthly swing fails for longs. You've had one here for reversal. It's taken place, but you've now broken that. So you've closed your first monthly candle above this local consolidation, above 111.22. And so if it continues to hold 111.22 on a monthly basis, to me, the next logical area is for this thing to retest its highs, which would be more coinciding with Bitcoin dominance. You know, if Bitcoin dominance is also topping out, Litecoin is one of those coins with enough data that I watch that I go, okay, this one might actually be a good opportunity. So I always joke and I say it's very simple. If Litecoin lives above $111.22, one day it becomes, you know, $214.53. That's it. That's the whole setup. It's as easy and simple as it gets. If you start closing monthly candles back below here, well, you know, the setup is now invalid, and you probably don't want to just sit there and hold this if it's going to ride all the way back down to like $50. So,
awesome.
Yeah, believe it or not, Litecoin.
Easy breezy, beautiful candles. So they say. Magic, as always, man, love your insight, love your detailing on the charts. Thank you so much. Guys, if you want more Magic and Money, we have his Discord link pinned to the top of the comment section. We appreciate it. And Magic, thank you again, my friend. We love having you on this show. You bring some really, really good insight, and we look forward to bringing you on next week.
Awesome. See you guys. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you very much.
You know, I think the 80, I think of for downside that I know he mentioned going down to 81,000.
82,
81, 82. I think that is definitely a real possibility. I do think that if I had to put percentage on it, pick a direction, I do think that we go above 100K. I just think that the timing in the market, I know that, you know, historically we've had these big 30% pullbacks and, you know, is there one in store for us? Perhaps. But I still lean on the bullish side. The 50,000 mark, I can't see it, man. But I mean, we've been surprised time and time again. So I don't.
I see a lot of comments. You know, he's a bear. He's this. I want people to understand something.
He's been probably more spot on than anybody.
Magic holds Bitcoin. So when he's looking at charts and numbers, he's looking at a perspective of, well, what is the chart telling me? And if the chart's telling him something, it's not because he wants it to go down or he's a perma bear. It's just it is what it is. So. Got to respect the man. The guy knows what the hell he's doing. He's probably made more money trading than all of us in here combined. And he's a great dude. We love Magic. All right. Let's take before we move on, I want to give a big thank you. Today's show is brought to you by Legacy Network. The Legacy Academy app has been live. And if you haven't downloaded it, well, you wouldn't have been earning any money. And with our LGCT token live in the app, able to earn while you learn, it's a absolute no-brainer. This is an amazing team with an amazing product. Highly, highly recommend you do it. Literally, right now, it's free. It's free, and you can make money. So shout out to Legacy. There's a link in the description if you want to join their Telegram.
And then I just want to give a little love to the chat as well. If you are new here, say hello. We'd love to give you a little recognition and a little shout-out. We got It's a Folic, John Foster, Jerry M., Michael D., Calvinator, Dave Roy, Smash Satoshi Smakamoto, Crypto Adoption Coming, Agent Rivera, Vincente, J Champ, LOL, Jim Bean, Mick Cray, Bryce MK, Vegas Claw, Harry C, D Crypto, to all of you. Hola! Welcome to Sin City Quick.
All right. Nando said, tell Cassius to bust a freestyle. Maybe he will, but you can't. It's got to flow, right? Right, Cassius? I mean, I'm not a rapper, so I don't know, but I mean, I actually do. I do a little remix rap. Robin knows. Pretty good, right?
Don't let it do it. No, don't do it, Dave.
Not good.
Do we have a rap battle?
Don't even about
I
it.
would get destroyed. Anyways, let's talk about this. Bitcoin exchange reserves have hit a 3-year low of 2.5 million as demand continues to grow. This is a per crypto quant. People are demanding physical gold and more Bitcoin. Interesting times. And this was reposted from they reposted a chart they shared that people are buying physical gold. So that's interesting. And then also this, it's from Bitwise. If companies and governments want to buy Bitcoin, they'll largely have to buy it from individuals who are willing to sell. Take a look at this chart here, okay? Bitcoin ownership by type. 70% is owned by individuals. 7.5% of the supply is currently estimated to be lost, and only 6.1% is held by funds and ETFs. 70% is held by individuals. So just something interesting. Why don't you zoom out and you kind of take a look at, okay, we talk about sell pressure, buy pressure. Where is it coming from? The exchange reserves are low. Individuals hold 70%, and you can throw in the 7.5%. 75% of the supply, 80% of the supply, if you adjust for the estimated loss, that's a lot. That's a lot. So when the OTC desk dries up and the exchanges don't have enough, and maybe more people start pulling it off their exchanges, right? We'll talk about the Wall Street banks and what they decide to do. But there's going to be an inflection point with Bitcoin and just standard economics. Right? Supply and demand. It doesn't get much simpler than that. If there's more people that want a product, but there's not enough of the product, the price goes up. You don't have to go study macroeconomics to understand that. I want to go to you, Cassius. What are your thoughts on anything I kind of just talked about with these reserves and also with the ownership type here for BTC?
Well, I mean, first of all, you make a great point. That's what I was talking about earlier with supply and demand. I mean, that's the thing about Bitcoin, is the tokenomics, right? We know that there's limited supply. I'm glad you put up that chart actually about the 21 million, who owns it. And this is why we're long-term bullish, right? And also you made a good point about Magic, like just because he's going over the charts doesn't mean he's a bear, right? Listen, I got a Bitcoin pendant on. I'm obviously a Bitcoin bull, but charts is something that I read as well. So as a trader and you're trying to make money, you could do that. I personally do not short Bitcoin, by the way. I trade the altcoins, a lot of the small micro cap ones, so I get that volatility. Bitcoin's been holding up strong. And so and part of the reason is because of what you just said. I mean, the demand is there for it and it's got a limited supply. Whereas a lot of these altcoins and these meme coins, that's just not really the case on them. A lot of them are the P&D style type of stuff. So, I got a whole strategy on that. I can get into that later if you want to. But basically, it depends on what you're trading in crypto. It's not all the same. A lot of people who are new, I remember when I was new, I kind of thought that a lot of the stuff was the same as Bitcoin, and it's not. So I think you have to be very clear on what we're talking about. He was looking at a Bitcoin chart earlier. That's not the same necessarily for all of the altcoins. So you got to know what it is you actually want to trade. So I definitely want to put that out there. For a short-term trader like myself, I like the volatility. I like the altcoins. I do a lot of shorting, I'm going to admit, because I think a lot of them have not a lot of, especially the meme coins, don't have like intrinsic value, right? So when you're talking about supply and demand, that's definitely applicable to Bitcoin, not necessarily for everything else.
Unless you're like 50x leveraging Bitcoin and you hit it and you hit the perfect entry, then yeah, it's really hard. When Bitcoin's range bound, it's hard to make money on trading it, right? Leverage trading, unless you're actively trading spot, right? And you're putting up 100K and you're capping the difference. It's just.
But I do the 50x stuff, but I'll do it on altcoins too. So that depends on your strategy. I trade on FIMX for doing like.
It also just kind of depends on where you're at, financially, and what your goal
Right.
is. Some people are fine just doing a 2x,
It's
a
different for everybody.
2 or 3x,
Absolutely.
and then bankrolling $100,000, and
It
a
depends on your
2 or
strategy.
3x with a 5% move, you're talking $10,000 on a 2x.
I know you're absolutely right, and that's one of the things I always.
And
talk
so
about.
if you're just playing around with $500 and you're trying to make 10 grand out of it, then I mean, obviously you got to take on more risk. So it really depends on what your strategy is.
100%.
And I mean, there's nothing wrong with playing it safe, especially in the bull market. I mean, these volatile swings are massive, right? I mean, you get these big liquidation candles to the downside. Also, that happens to the upside too. So I would just caution you guys to just like don't over leverage yourself. Don't put all your eggs in one trade, especially. And then outside of that,
Didn't you put a 50x leverage trade?
Yeah, but I closed it. I closed it within 8 hours.
He closed it by
That's a
itself.
long time to be in a 50x.
It actually is. It actually is.
Yeah,
Take it from me, a guy who does the high leverage.
I think I had it open for like 6 hours or something along those lines. And I mean, it all depends. And in that situation, I think I had like a couple $100 or $500 or something like that. So it was more of a rolling the dice, a slot machine pull on that.
We're in Vegas, baby.
Yeah, it's all about your kind of ideology.
Right.
I got no problem putting a 50x. At the same time, I also have no problem taking a large position and putting in a 3x and just kind of letting it ride. And like, hey, all of a sudden you see Bitcoin at 91,000 or 89,000, 86,000, whatever it is. You know what? There's nothing wrong with a longer time horizon trade. Put in 3x. You got your liquidation.
There was a trader, was it Tom Crown, that had a long leverage position on Bitcoin when it got down to 16K?
Yeah,
and rode
Tom
that
did
thing
that,
up
yeah.
to like 50K.
let it ride.
Heck, man.
I wish I was leverage trading back then. That's what I did now, but I did it with meme coins. I got a bunch of meme coin positions. I caught the top on a short.
And here's the thing: we see Wall Street hedging all the time, right? They'll short the futures and buy the spot.
Yes.
You can essentially, if you hold a large bag of an altcoin or
Right.
Bitcoin spot, and you follow people like Magic, and they have these zones laid out for you, and if this thing crosses, you can put it in a short position and kind of hedge yourself, make money on the trade.
Exactly.
You see, and while you're kind of losing some portfolio gains there if the price goes down. And so there's definitely ways of making money. It's not always just, well, the price needs to go up, right?
Correct.
Take a look at this. This is the bank's borrowing going all the way back to 96, okay? And in white is recessions. You have in orange is a large domestically chartered banks borrowing, so like Bank of America, Chase. The blue is borrowings from foreign-related institutions, and the yellow is your smaller banks, okay, your smaller domestic banks. Their borrowing is higher than the 08 crisis, the 2000 recession, and the 96. What does that mean?
Yeah, I was got to take into account inflation, right? And so, just like those borrowing from one, I guess you could call a cycle to another, was substantially way higher than the previous, right? So here, scroll down a little bit so I can see it. So what year was the first run up there with the first white line? What was the time window on that?
This one?
Yeah.
86 to 92.
Yeah, so in 80, and then you forexed almost the next one, which was in the early 2000s, the .com, and then you essentially had about a 30% higher one on
This
the next on 2010.
You bring up a good point.
It's
This
so
might
for
be
me,
adjusted for inflation, though. I would have to double check that, but go ahead.
But either way, you're still seeing substantially larger borrowing, even if it's adjusted for inflation per percentage, or if it's a dollar amount. I would expect this one to be at minimum 30% higher than back in 2008 financial crisis. And,
So how do you explain
also you got
2020?
that one.
This is
Well,
2020.
that's COVID, bro. I mean, you can't, maybe there wouldn't be that gap there. Maybe if there was no COVID, it would just be no void there, no white line, and it would have just been a solid borrowing all the way up to where we're at currently, with perhaps a small pullback. Like if you look back at 2008, 2009, right prior to that, not that one, or excuse me, the 2000, the .com one, you see a little retracement there. I think maybe that could have been what we would have had here, right? I think if there was no COVID, we'd still be in an inflationary era. We would be in a borrowing situation. Probably would have had some kind of economic pullback. And, well, we had an economic reset, essentially, with COVID. And then the U.S. government just came in and printed our way out of it.
This is
Reset everything, basically.
this to me tells me there's a liquidity crunch in the banks. And, you know, we've heard stories and
There's
news articles.
always liquidity crunch.
Not always. And news articles coming out.
You tell me the banks got the cash on hand? You know.
No. That's different. There's been news and metrics showing that the banks, their unrealized losses are at historic levels. Now, what does this mean for crypto? Okay. This means that QE might just be around the corner. QE might just be around the corner. The Fed stops letting shit run off their balance sheet. They actually start buying assets, helping the banks out with liquidity.
Jerome Powell was testifying today in front of Congress, got asked when, if ever, they're going to have quantitative easing. His answer was if the interest rates, the Fed fund rate gets down to zero. I don't see that happening. So I don't see quantitative easing coming in. And you know what? Like,
everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the face. That was my
but it's a very interesting answer. The answer is not that they're looking to get to zero. The answer is not that they're looking to do quantitative easing. He's basically saying if shit hits the fan and we go down to zero for some reason, say there's a war, say there's some kind of massive banking collapse or something like that. If we go down to zero, that's a crazy situation. That's a black swan. That's a COVID event. That's the 2008. That's the .com. That's one of those events. And if that were to happen, quantitative easing is back on. That's basically what he said. But outside that scenario, I think he realizes quantitative easing is gonna essentially translate to inflation, which they're trying to fight or whatever. But I don't think quantitative easing is coming unless something globally, or at least with the economy here in the United States, forces that and forces interest rates to drop quickly.
Rob, like I said, everyone's got a plan, but like Tyson said, until you get punched in the face. And remember, Jerome Powell, he might no longer be employed after this year, right? 2026, he's done. So will he go out for a renomination? Potentially. Could we get a new Fed chair in there that's maybe more aligned with Trump? I don't know. But this is something to keep an eye on. I thought was pretty interesting. And then a couple of quick hitters here. So we do have this post from Dan at Crypto Trades. Kraken just notified me that my FTX funds have been successfully distributed to them, and then I can expect them by next week. Some stimulus is coming. May I remind everyone, we're talking $15 to $16 billion. So, Cassius, is this something that you think could be that? Because I always say, like the market right now is in need of a spark, right? Liquidity spark, legislative spark, something. Bitcoin Strategic Reserve, I don't know. Is this, to you, a spark that you think could kind of reverse the sentiment of the market?
Well, about time, right? Finally, for all the people who didn't get their money from that. I had money in Celsius, so full disclosure, I know how painful it is. But, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. We're always looking for what is that next catalyst, right? What's the thing that's going to give us a reason to get bullish again, especially when we've been in a little bit of recent bearish sentiment. I don't know if that liquidity, I understand why. It seems like it, right? You're getting an influx of cash from people who didn't have it. And, these are obviously crypto people who, that's a lot of cash, you know what I'm saying? They might want to put something to work. And I do actually agree with the idea of, we need liquidity in order for these markets to pump more than just perhaps a headline news flash, right? So this is news, but it's also news that injects liquidity. So it could be. I think that there is something to be said, though, for Bitcoin. Bitcoin's held up so strong this cycle that, I don't see it falling off a cliff anytime soon, especially when you have something like this happening, right? Mm-hmm. It's altcoins are the thing that's kind of, to me, always kind of the question about, just because you get a lot of money from FTX doesn't mean they're going to go right back to your favorite alt that you had back when FTX was out, right? That was a long time ago. But for Bitcoin, which is, of course, the standard barometer for the market, this could be, I would say, more bullish than bearish. I'll put it that way. I don't think that this is a negative thing for it.
What are your thoughts, Rob?
I don't think we're really moving the market that much with $16 billion. I'm just being honest. I think that it might give a little tick up.
Markets with $16 billion. Do you hear yourself?
Okay. MicroStrategy bought $4.6 billion worth of Bitcoin in November. Market didn't move.
They buy OTC.
Yeah.
I understand.
But what I'm saying is that.
Okay, that might be the dumbest thing you've ever said. $16 billion.
Well, hold on one second. Just to defend Rob for 1 second. He's just saying that just because you gave everyone $16 billion doesn't mean it's going to go right into Bitcoin on day one, right? It's just like,
yeah.
Well, dude, that we agree on.
Mt. Gox, I didn't see a single bump. I mean, there's been time and time again, there has been funds that were lost, that were repaid, that have never moved the markets. Now, maybe over time, that money has poured over and slowly increased. But to simply say, hey, FTX money is coming, the markets are going to explode, I don't see it, bro. And then what I'm saying is that I routinely nonstop see these over-the-counter buys. Sure, they're over-the-counter buys, but massive amounts of money that dwarf what retail is buying recently, and it has yet to move the market. We saw MicroStrategy bought strategy, whatever. They just bought 100-something million,
780 million,
almost $1 billion worth at 97,000, and it's down $2,000. And so, I mean, honestly, dude, I mean, the volume on Bitcoin alone just in the last 24 hours has been $32 billion. The volume on ETH, which I think is really not even an interest to me, is $18 billion, which is still more than that. You got the volume on Tether, $80 billion. So, I mean, you throw $16 billion in the market, sure, you're going to have a bunch of degens coming in with some new FTX capital. They'll buy some stuff. Okay, might see a 3% rise up on some altcoins. Sure. But to think that that's going to kick off the next leg of the bull market, absolutely the fuck not. Also, I want to say...
my point of contention was not that all 16 billion is going to hit the market.
Even if it does.
But if $16 billion of buy orders hit the order books, it's not going to be a 3% gain.
This is funny to me because you were the bullish one more so, and you were bullish before.
I'm not saying
why would the 16 billion not help it out?
I am bullish on. I think what drives this Bitcoin cycle, what drives new all-time highs, what gets us to that 200, that 300, that $400,000 Bitcoin, is off the back of institutions, nation states. Also, you also have just states here in the United States. You have pension funds. That is where the money is. I just have not seen the buzz from the normal people and the day-to-day encounters that have crypto. I talked to somebody yesterday. I was like, hey, man, you got any Bitcoin, whatever? Zero idea what the hell I'm talking about. 20-something-year-old was anyway, you know who it is, that new manager at the anyways. First thing this dude says is like,
where the bathroom was?
he asked me, he's like, or I was talking about Bitcoin, he was just like, which was kind of weird. He was like, hey man, I heard that some guy lost his Bitcoin and a hardware on a hard drive, and then he's trying to dig it up.
Everyone tells that story. The layman does know that story.
Yeah, and I'm just like, and then, you know, which got me researching. I'm like, is this dude, he's still trying to buy this thing?
He's trying to buy the landfill.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's like 8,000. It's like 8,000 Bitcoin.
But isn't it funny that that's the story that like the non-coiner knows?
That's,
you know what I mean?
Where I'm at. That's what my whole point exactly is, that the markets right now, the price explosion that's coming is not going to be off the back of retail. Or at least it's not going to be the key driving factor. It's going to come off of institutions, governments, and nations, and perhaps some states here locally, retirement account, pension funds. That's where it is. Maybe sovereign wealth funds as well. I think it also plays an integral part.
But is that like a thing that is a knee-jerk kind of, is that like a catalyst, or is that kind of a slow drip over time though, right? Like you're talking about funds and stuff, you know,
I think, retail will explode a project, right? Retail will take XRP or Solana or whatever it is from $10 to $200, from 50 cents to $3. Like that's what retail does. Retail gets excited. Retail is like, what? Hey, don't want to miss out. And they'll throw money at something. Now, with that said, institutions also get excited, but they're more methodical. They take their time. They got to get approval. They buy OTC. And so you get that big run up. You get the next level in the market, right? We're going to get to that $200,000 Bitcoin, but it's going to be a little bit more drawn out. But if you look at someone outside of retail, you'll say it's going to take a long time. Maybe take 6 months, 8 months. But when you look at it from a traditional finance perspective, I mean, then that point, you're like, what? Hey, in 6 months, we're going to have a $200,000 Bitcoin. I'm pretty much sure anybody to say, hey, a $2 trillion asset going to $4 trillion in the span of 5 months is mind-blowing, face-melting, right? It's crazy. For us in our space, You might be like, man, it took 6 months to get to 200,000, man. Like that's great. I had to 50x my way up to my Lambo, man. Like, you know what I mean? And so it really depends on what your perspective is.
That's true.
But I don't know. I mean, ultra bullish, just not quite in this massive, volatile 2-week run up.
Okay.
Except for the next 2 weeks.
Okay. So let's take your
120,000.
thesis, which I agree with. If we're going to see a 400K Bitcoin, it's going to be large buyers. We're talking
countries, yeah. We're talking Japan.
Yeah.
Japan is unloading the
So what does that mean for altcoins?
It means Ethereum's still at $3,000. That's where it is. And
no, seriously, what does that mean for
honestly, you know, I'm not even kidding, bro. And 3,000, no, not realistic. I do agree. If you see a doubling of Bitcoin, we will see a higher price ETH, but I just, you look at, I was today I was looking at it, and there's a couple charts you can take a look at, but look at ETH. This is on the 1 year chart. So on the 1 year, you have Ethereum at 2,700. It's down on the year, right? Very little swings. It for less than
technically it's
less than 1 day over
3% up, Robin. It says 3% up.
Okay, it's at 3% up. Sure. Okay. But you look at this, right? And if you'd have been holding Ethereum for a year, you're even, right?
You're up 3%.
And then, but you just look at Bitcoin, bro. You look at Bitcoin on the 1 year, and you're up from 40,000 to 95,000. So you're almost a 2x just on Bitcoin. If you've held Ethereum for any period of time over the last year, you're down, right? You have made a mistake. If you bought Bitcoin a year ago instead of you bought Ethereum a year ago instead of Bitcoin, you made a mistake. It's simple as that. Now, you can sit here and invalidate this with some other ones. I'm not saying that Ethereum is the only one. I mean, we can go down. You can look at Cardano, for example.
All I got to do is pull up versus the Bitcoin chart.
Okay. Well, you got Cardano's
There's
up.
been like 5 tickers that hit new all-time highs besides Bitcoin this cycle.
Yeah, and so
Here you go.
okay. Here's two of them that I was looking at this morning. Chainlink and Avalanche both have projects, and the reason I bring these up, you're extremely bullish on Chainlink. I'm extremely bullish on Avalanche.
Are you comparing them to Bitcoin?
Yeah.
Okay, here,
on the 1 year. On the 1 year.
Okay, so this is 1 year time frame. Chainlink versus Bitcoin. This is what the chart looks like.
Yeah, it's down and to the right. It's not looking good. And you know, my thesis here is that it's not the most appealing project to retail. And we've seen that altcoins that have performed this year have been retail driven, right?
What was the other one?
Avalanche. Avalanche is also down. Avalanche is not looking good right now on the 1 year. But
nothing is looking good against.
Well, that's
no. That's actually not it. So those are the two exceptions. So you go down the list. Outside of Bitcoin and Ethereum, you go down the list. XRP,
there's XRP.
Up. XRP, massive up. Solana, up. You got Dogecoin.
Solana's actually chopped.
Okay, but it ripped right before the year, right?
Solana hit, yeah.
Yeah. If you stretch that chart out,
right?
You stretch that chart out a little bit, it's performed.
That list is still pretty short, though, Rob.
This is Doge.
Doge is up. Doge is up on the 1 year.
This is ADA.
ADA's up on the 1 year.
This is
Tron is up on the 1 year. SWI is up on the 1 year.
XLM.
Stellar is up on the 1 year. And so you go down this list, and it's 70% of the top 50. The top 50, 70% have at least kept up with Bitcoin. And then there's a few outliers, and Ethereum is right there. And so, anyways,
Altcoins just bled to death.
Well, it's one thing to compare them to Bitcoin, but compare them to Total 3, right? I mean, that's what I'm looking at when I'm judging altcoins. I'm comparing them to the other altcoins, right? You know what I'm saying? So,
yeah, exactly. Like if the altcoin market in itself, if all the alts are stalling, right? And you can sit here and you can look at say we're going into a bear market, right? You say we're in 2020, the back end of 2021, 2022, we had a top. Obviously, everything is going to underperform Bitcoin because Bitcoin's just going to be the rock, right? It's going to be the only savior to crypto. But the times have changed now. And so we're seeing that altcoins are performing very well. And if you are not at least performing on par with Bitcoin, then you're on the outside looking in, right? If you can't return what Bitcoin can in the first half of a bull market, then you're messing up, man. You're messing up. And maybe it'll come late. There's going to be certain projects that are late movers. I will agree, and I wouldn't sell your bag just simply because it hasn't moved yet. I'm not saying that, but you should absolutely evaluate it. Because I will just tell you this, if Bitcoin is at 200,000 and you are still underperforming Bitcoin with Ethereum, you need to reevaluate.
Oh, that's valid.
And that's where I'm at, because at $50,000 Bitcoin, if you would have told me, hey, ETH's going to be the same price, Bitcoin's going to be at 2x, need to reevaluate. That's why I'm reevaluating. And what I'm seeing is that every time that Bitcoin moves, ETH just doesn't.
Yeah, this has not been ETH cycle. I mean, there's no doubt about it, right?
And I can't, and sell me on something. Either one of you, sell me on something bullish for ETH.
I'm not doing that again.
No, I'm just saying.
I'm not bullish on ETH, so I'm not going to do it.
Give me a DApp you're excited about. Tell me one DApp you're really excited about on ETH.
I'm not having this conversation every show. I've given you all the reasons I am more bullish than you. I'm not saying ETH is going to be the best performing altcoin.
What's your favorite altcoin, David?
My favorite, good question. My favorite altcoin.
Or top 3, something like that.
Top 3, okay. Not in any particular order.
Mm-hmm.
BitTensor, Virtual Protocol.
You're a Cardano guy, right?
I'm a Cardano guy, yeah. But it doesn't make my top 3.
Okay. And then let me ask the question another way. Is that from this point forward, or is that just kind of how you felt for this whole cycle?
That's from like a month and a half, 2 months back. But I'm still bullish on those.
Okay.
And for my third slot, it would have to be either Cardano, Chainlink, or Athena. Well, I mean, not Athena, Ondo.
Ondo.
Yeah.
Do like Ondo. Chainlink, Chainlink was an outperformer early this cycle. If you guys remember, Chainlink was one of those ones that pumped early, and then it started pulling back like a lot of the other alts, after it hit. But Chainlink was strong. Ondo's been very strong. Tron has been extraordinarily strong.
Tron and BNB are the hedges in bear markets, bro.
They are. Tron and BNB were two of the only. There's only 8 coins that were from the old cycle that outperformed Bitcoin leading into this new cycle. Tron and BNB were 2 of them.
I mean, you mentioned Cassius. So this is Link versus Bitcoin, November 22nd to December 13th. Chainlink gained 105% against Bitcoin. And it's kind of been trending down, putting in lower highs and lower lows.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing with Chainlink is, to me is my, and I've explained this to our Patreon members. I did a write-up on my 3 buckets of investing. Chainlink is in my 3rd bucket, which is my set it and forget it. I don't pay attention to short-term price action. I believe in what they're building. And I also know that what they're building and the people they're building it with, it doesn't happen overnight. It takes time. And so if I truly believe the people that have the patience to buy and sit on Chainlink at $18, at $5, $10, $30, they're going to be heavily rewarded in the future. But from this moment forward, if you were to ask that question, I would probably, my 3rd one will probably be either Cardano or Ondo, but I would lean Ondo.
The Chainlink, have you guys seen? You guys can look it up probably out there in TV land. But there's the Venn diagrams that show that the big hedge funds, institutions, and things. Yeah. Chainlink is in almost every single one of them.
Bro, they're literally going to be the conductor of money moving from private to public blockchain.
Because I don't know if anybody's talked about them having an ETF or not, but like the big funds or whatever, there's a lot of talk that includes Chainlink in their plan. So like what Rob was saying, that slow over time, the pension funds and whatnot, if you start getting a bucket of altcoins, Chainlink seems to always show up. And that's one of those ones that maybe the price action will surprise us, if you will, going forward.
Chainlink is, you got to remember, they're working with the largest clearinghouse in the world that do over 2 quadrillion transactions, right? The DTCC. They're also working with Swift. They're working with the Trump family, the World Liberty Fi, although I think that holds less weight than obviously the previously 2 mentioned. But Chainlink is one, and when you look at you can sit here and talk about hype. Well, the hype, well, how is that going to translate to actual utility? And through their CCIP protocol, the universal gas fee will be Link. And so you can put in ETH and on the back end get SWI or some JP Morgan Chase chain, but in the thick of it, in the little receptacle in the middle, right? The little office, it gets converted all to Chainlink.
And that's kind of been like its niche, right? I mean, that's why you think about it long term. Like you said, to me, I got a bag of Chainlink, kind of set it and forget it type of deal. One that we haven't brought up, though, I got to bring it up, I'd be remiss if I don't, is Algorand. They've been doing a lot of stuff. They keep grinding. Their price action has not been great compared to so many others, but they are still grinding. They're still building. They just started the staking and the Algorand Foundation, and really fast, cheap, and easy, as I always say in the song I did with AJ.
What's I'm not I know Algorand, I know what they do, but I don't follow it in depth ecosystem wise. It sounds like you kind of do.
Yeah, I do.
What's your selling point to Algorand? Why should people buy or hold Algorand?
They're an American company, but they're not the biggest. The things that they're making, moves they're making, a lot of them been in Europe and stuff, right? So they have EURD, which is basically, it's like it's kind of like a CBDC, but basically it was issued by a bank in England. I mean, I think it's Switzerland or somewhere in the Netherlands. I can't remember which one. But basically, you can hold a digital euro on the Algorand blockchain. So I mean, they're working with nation states and institutions, things like that are really kind of positioning them, because the rails of Algorand are so either, Silvio Macali, that's the inventor of it. He's like, it's what does he say? It's government ready, So it's a matter of same as anything, to actually get adoption. But the way the tokenomics are set up, they've got a hard cap on supply. If big nation states or big institutions, enterprises start adopting it, it's one of those ones that, it takes years to build the technology, but it only takes days or weeks for hype to pump the price. You know what I mean? And that's how I look at something like Algorand. And I think there's some other ones like that as well, but I don't think there's a lot that are really building something that is like a enterprise ready.
Crypto is a brutal industry to build in. people are so impatient. You know, I've seen founders come out and say, like, guys, we're just this thing takes time. You know, we're like literally trying to upend a financial system, and everyone's like, well, when's the price going to go up? Before we end the show, I want to ask, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here. You know, our outro song, you made it, by the way, has been a massive hit with the community. There's been a few people that have asked me, where can I listen to the song? And so we're potentially working on something with Cassius to give people who want to listen to it. But when we play it in the outro, if we can we mute the sound and have him rap over it?
Just play it. I'll hit the emphasis on the punchlines. Okay. Play. This is not one I perform all the time, but I do like.
You play the music, but turn down the tempo and increase the bass.
That's all right. I can still perform it while you play it.
Like, yes, hold on.
I'll be my own hype man on this one.
Cassius, if people want to follow you or learn more about what you're doing, where should they go?
Okay, so I'm Cassius Couve on everything. Makes it real easy. CassiusCuvee. So that's Twitter, Instagram, really at Twitter and my YouTube channel. So I'm going to be doing a lot more TA on my YouTube channel. Something Rob was talking about, how there's a lot of different strategies. One of the things I focus on is trying to figure out a strategy that will work for you. So I'm real interactive with my community. If you leave a comment, I'm going to answer your questions, you know, so feel free to ask me a question about your strategy or time frame that you like to trade in. That's what I kind of focus on, is really trying to develop a strategy for you. The thing I like to do, honestly, is scalping. And I really like those short-term bangers, you know what I mean? So I'm trading on Fimex, just so you guys know, too. I just signed a contract with Fimex, so I'm going to be going hard for them because I think they're really user-friendly. That's what I like about the platform a lot. But really, just follow me on YouTube, man. That's where I'm going to start giving more and more bangers. I'm going to start live streaming regularly next month, so you guys can tap in with me on there.
Sweet. And we just put the link to his X handle.
Yeah, my YouTube channel is just my name, too. Just Cassius Couve.
Amazing. With that being said, Rocco, thank you all so much for tuning in. We appreciate you. I'm going to keep this outro short because my boy Cassius, anyways, we love you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. We got a Cardano video coming out later today. We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Sin City, crypto. Everybody know we here for entertainment and info. Gonna show you how to get that big dough. So every day stay tapped in for big facts, no capping. With Bitcoin, if you're in, then you win. We divide the pie with no fraction. It's Big Rob, David. I spit the game, but
they gave it.
Name the coin that's your favorite. I got dry powder.
Why save it?
To the OGs, new beginners.
Special shout out to the whale members.
Buy dip, sell winners.
Ain't really nothing you can tell sinners.
Tune in for the latest new flavors. They gonna teach us mean coins. They polarizing like barbecue chicken pieces. I laugh with a major grin. Laggers, we trade them in. Baddies, they came to sin. And
sinners, they play to win. Screaming, Ola!
Till my bags are flowing over. Hold ya to the moon and to the solar. Won't I? Don't be letting FOMO control ya. It's over when the finger tornado close ya.
Ola!
Bro, that is a banger, bro. My God, I love that song.
Man, and you guys, that's not normal rap beat, so I had to figure out how I wanted to bounce to it. I switched the flow up on that one.